Today, we're going to talk about a voice that has somehow managed to echo loud and clear for over 1,000 years. Okay, let's start with a number, and that number is 1009. So, what's so special about that number? Well, that is how many years passed between when a 10th century Armenian monk died and when he received one of the absolute highest honors in the global church, the title of Doctor of the Church. So you gotta ask, right? Who was this guy, Gregory of Narek? And how in the world does his voice still matter so much today? How does someone from that long ago who wasn't even in communion with Rome get such a modern honor? Okay, let's dig in.
All right, so to really get a handle on this man and his work, you have to picture the world he was born into. And let me tell you, it was a world forged in chaos. So Gregory was born around 951 AD in what we now call Eastern Turkey. This was the 10th century, a time of just constant political and religious turmoil. His mom died when he was just a kid, so his dad, who happened to be a bishop, raised him. And you can imagine his father was just trying to hold on to Orthodox Christian beliefs in this incredibly volatile part of the world. And this really sets up the central theme of his whole life. You see, on the outside, in the regular world, you had total chaos, political instability, constant threats from invaders, you name it. But on the inside of the monastery, he lived this completely different life, a life of quiet study, discipline, and a pretty fierce defense of his faith. So let's go inside those walls into the Narek monastery. This is the place that really made him who he was, the monastery scholar. I mean, think about this. He walked into that monastery as a teenager, and he never left. He was ordained a priest around 977 and just poured his entire life into that one place. He became a teacher, an abbot, really a pillar of that community, right up until he died around the year 1003. And, don't picture him as just some quiet monk praying all day. No way. This guy was an intellectual powerhouse. He was teaching theology, composing hymns, and he wasn't afraid to get into the thick of it. He directly challenged local heresies, movements that were trying to reject the church's structure and its core sacraments. He was always pushing for the importance of things like baptism and the Eucharist. But where he really left his mark, what made his voice echo for 1,000 years, was his writing. This incredible mix of poetry and theology. It was him, speaking from the heart. His absolute masterpiece is called the Book of Lamentations. It's this collection of 95 poetic prayers. But, the other name for it really tells you everything you need to know. Speaking with God from the depths of the heart. And even today, it's a foundational text for Armenian Christianity. And what's so powerful about it is that it taps into something totally universal. I mean, he just dives right into these very human feelings of sinfulness and failure. But, and this is key, he always pairs it with this idea of immense divine mercy. It's all about this deep, deep yearning to connect with God. So all of this is pointing to this one big theological idea, and it's called theosis. The ultimate goal here, the whole point of his prayers, was this belief that the soul can actually have a mystical union with God. It's about bridging that massive gap between us humans and the divine. And that idea, that powerful, personal idea, that's the thing that let his voice carry across the centuries, which, hey, brings us right back to where we started. I mean, just look at this timeline. He dies around 1003, and then, all the way in 2015, Pope Francis declares him a doctor of the church. That is a massive stretch of time. It just goes to show how incredibly resilient his ideas were. So why then? Because his teachings on prayer, on divine mercy, they were seen as just timeless, totally relevant. And get this, he was the first ever from the Armenian tradition to get this title. He's even called a doctor of peace now, kind of like a guide for anyone who's looking for that same deep, personal connection he wrote about. So that leaves us with one last question to chew on. In our world, a world just full of constant noise and distraction, what can we really learn from a voice that was all about speaking from the depths of the heart? His work is this powerful reminder, right? It reminds us of the power of looking inward, of that universal search for meaning. And honestly, that message feels more important right now than maybe it ever has.